This analysis comes with the caveat that we don't have answers to a number of possible problems with the film since the sequel has yet to come out, and because many of the issues revolve around the logistics and the plot, the video is more unstructured. Across the Spider-Verse has some good stuff in it, but it is also teeming with not only small mistakes, like Gwen being saved by Miguel miraculously appearing at exactly the right time, but it also suffers from major world building and logic gaps. I thought we just got free of the universe not having any free will in Loki. Even with there now being a multiverse, this film still manages to repeat that series' major issue and have it be that certain events must occur. It's one thing to have events that forge Spider-Man into becoming who he is, but for that event to be the same thing in all universes strips the character of their autonomy. This film doesn't address this properly, and instead has Miles focus exclusively on his dad's fate. Are any of the Spider people not more concerned with how they lack any free will? If things can change, like how Gwen's dad quits the Force at the end of the film, then the canon events aren't even an issue. You just need to find a way to orchestrate things in their respective universe, working out how you want them to, which is now just cause and effect and doesn't have any relevance to the predestined outcome. The film advocates for his dad's death being set in place, and so changing it will result in the end of the world. But all Miles needs to do in the next film is persuade him to resign without the need of saving him in that instant. But that in itself will surely be a breaking of the canon. This gives rise to a larger issue. If both Miles and Spot are breaks in canon, then any action they take should create a multiverse black hole because they are constantly disrupting the natural flow of things. But when Miles saves the police captain in Mumbattan, preventing his death causing a break in the canon cannot be reconciled with what we already know. It would be canon if Miles wasn't there to save him, but without Miles being there in the first place, as an anomaly himself, and being the reason for the Spot's rampage, the event should never have happened. The captain's death here cannot possibly be a canon event because it relies on a variable that isn't canonical, rather than being disrupted by a non-canon entity. The canon event should happen when nothing is interrupted by multiversal beings, especially those that are anomalies themselves. If a canon event could happen another time, this doesn't explain Gwen trying to stop Miles, or why the leaders of the society are mad at him. The black hole also wouldn't have appeared if it could happen another time. If it's the case that the Spider Society is being lied to by Miguel, and he's got an ulterior motive, this doesn't explain the black hole, but it does give credence to questions about some of Miguel's more dubious actions.
I'm a good guy! You don't look like a good guy!
But if this is true, and Miguel is evil, it would reduce him from a character with grief and doing what must be done to maintain reality even at the cost of love and happiness, to a simpler villain that just wants to control things. If this happens in the sequel, they'd be taking arguably the best character from the film and making him less interesting.
This is unbelievable.
This is the lobby.
The Spider Society has its own flaws, as it fundamentally goes against what Peter Parker represents. Spider-Man, as every iteration has shown us, struggles to be both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Above all else, he tries to save as many people as he can, no matter the cost. And yet, all these Spider-Mans are happy with being a part of the team that lets people die. To say that they don't have a choice, and so to join the team to help out with the only cards they've been dealt, is missing the problem. Just because Spider-Man is told this is the only way, doesn't mean he would believe it and not try to be actively fixing it. I find it hard to believe that Miles is the first version of all these spider people who is willing to act on being told people must die and that their free will is in jeopardy. In an infinite multiverse, wouldn't Miguel have chosen a different Miles or recruited more spider people to agree with him?
Miguel wants you back at HQ. All of you.
There's a greater existential problem at play now. Why would they tell Miles that his dad is destined to die in 2 days? Or invite him to the Spider Society? I know it's for the audience's benefit, but Miguel doesn't want him there or want him to join the team, and yet they tell him everything. If they just sent him home, then Miles wouldn't know anything, and then he can't disrupt the timeline. For a character whose whole deal is doing what must be done, even at the cost of his own and everybody else's happiness, he's really stupid. It also raises questions as to why Peter B. Parker is recruited in the first place as well. Especially since he spends most of his time in this film looking after his child instead of doing his job. For some reason, he decides to take the baby into battle. He shouldn't really even be bringing her to the Spider Society. But it's made worse when Miles is trying to escape and he brings her along. Yes, this could be due to not having any other options, since it wasn't the plan for a chase to begin, but he doesn't seem to understand the severity of the situation.
Can you take a photo of this? It's our first chase.
And it doesn't explain his willingness to bring her with him at the end of the film. We know, and Peter knows, that what they're about to do is dangerous, and yet all he says is, "Don't tell Mom." How about you leave your infant at home and go on the life-threatening mission without the burden of looking after your child? It's also really hard to believe that Miles is able to escape and outwit every single spider person in the society. He not only avoids every single attempt to be caught, getting incredibly lucky at times, but he's also able to get all of them to follow him out of the building. You'd think maybe some would stay behind in case he doubles back. The major problem with this film is that it fundamentally misunderstands the character of Spider-Man purely for the sake of a convoluted plot. To have a film that focuses on the aspects of character is one thing, but to forget the building blocks that makes him who he is, just so that you can say your film was the first one that broke the mold, is lazy. If you're going to recontextualize one of Spider-Man's defining moments, make it make sense and do it with care.